that's here and joining us. My name is Sierra. I'm a community engagement specialist at ADPList. I'm super excited to be here with you all today with our host, Yan, and our speakers, Lily, Frankie, Nitesh, and William. For those of you who haven't heard about ADPList, we are a community-based on connection, a platform where people can find, book, and meet mentors around the world. Our mission is to democratize mentorship and to foster an inclusive space that supports a network for designers to come together, learn from each other, and just strive to be better. So if you haven't had a chance to give us a try, feel free to head over to adplist.org and just let me know if you have any questions. If you enjoy the session today, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We're always doing something, so definitely keep an eye out for our latest news on our LinkedIn page. And with that, I will pass it over to our wonderful host, Yan.
Thanks to everyone for joining the event today. We're going to be talking about how to actually do storytelling in your portfolios. And we have incredible talented people here among us. Some of them I know actually personally, like William right there sitting. And the rest of them are really talented designers and design leaders in the community that will be sharing with you how to create a better storytelling with your portfolio to present your work as you go out there. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our first one, and we'll start from there for them to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about themselves and what they do these days and what they're going to be sharing with us. And we're going to start with Lily.
Hey, Jan. Thanks for the intro. Hi, everybody. My name is Lily. I'm a product designer at Facebook. I work on Messenger and Instagram. I've been there for almost a year now. It's my first time designing native mobile, so it's a really fun and new experience for me. Should I do like a full-on intro, Jan, or do you want me to keep it short?
Whatever you feel comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, just a little bit more. Before Facebook, I was at ANGEList, where it was like around 40 to 60 people. So it was a pretty startup-y environment. Before that, I was at IBM, where I actually first started as a software engineer and then pivoted to design in my first year there. I worked on IBM Watson Health, and it was really cool, really new. Over the course of those three companies, I've been an interviewer for all three. Probably went the hardest at interviewing when I was at ANGEList because of the small size of our team. But overall, certainly looked at thousands of portfolios. So really excited to share that experience and my tips and tricks with you out of that experience. Otherwise, really happy to meet you all.
Thank you, Lily. Frankie.
Would help if I took myself off mute. Hi, everyone. These days, I keep starting talking without doing that. You think by now I know to take it off. But anyways, it is nice to meet you all. I'm so happy to be here. So where do I want to begin this journey? I guess I'll start at the beginning and go backwards, or the end and go back to the beginning. So I currently am a UX UI designer at both a startup and a design agency. I work in the field full-time and part-time because I'm a little crazy. Couldn't get enough of it. I've been in the field almost a full year now. So I understand a lot of where you guys are coming from in terms of, breaking out from school and starting your career. So for me, I not only do UX UI work, I've also broken out into the content creation field as well, which I've been having a lot of fun with, and doing a lot of kind of UX UI related tips and tricks and just sharing my journey along the way as much as I possibly can to help break that barrier for entry-level designers to help or to break into the field. So for me, it's a lot of just talking and mentoring a lot, and then also, doing that UX UI work for both those companies. And for me, it's been interesting to really see the kind of difference between startup and agency life and to really, figure out kind of what the differences are. And I think that's really been an interesting one for me so early in my career, because like I said, it's only been about a year. So for me, I guess my kind of journey is pretty short. I've only been doing UX at these two companies, so not much to compare, but I think it's a really exciting field. And there's so much out there, and I just I'm excited to talk about portfolios and storytelling specifically, since I think that's a really big, important piece.
Thank you, Frankie. Only a year and so much already done. I can't wait to see what you're doing next. Nitesh.
Hey guys, so I'm Nitesh and I'm currently working as a product designer and design ops lead at Synopsys. So it's been like around 8 months since I joined Synopsys, and prior to that, I was at IBM for like 5.5 years. And prior to that, I was working with some startups from India and a design agency in US. So it's been like a very experience and journey with respect to design. Even like similar to Lily, I also started off as a software engineer at IBM and then moved towards design because like, so my master's was also in like software engineering with research in human computer interaction. And it's more of like with that experience and that interest towards creating something for users, I've gotten into this route and been in this for a while. I've been like introduced to ADPList through Design Buddies and also like just through LinkedIn. And it's been great. I think I've been on ADPList over a year now. And it's been like great talking to lots of people who are trying to break into design. And I've learned so much from the design community and from like different people within design community. And I just felt like I should like give back to at least some people who are like looking for help and in any way I can. So that's how I got to design. I mean ADPList and to this talk as well. So I'm happy to talk to anyone offline as well, just about design.
Amazing. Thank you, Nitesh. William.
Hey guys. Yeah, so my name is William Intim. I am currently senior UX designer at PayPal. I'm on the business mandatory team. It's a slightly complicated team because I work on everything PayPal, multi-countries. I'm working on Brazil, this, that. So it's really all over the place. But that team sits on top of the broader UX team. Anyway, can't really go much into details, but yeah, I am in my 10th year as a UX designer, senior UX designer. I do have front-end development background. I did put out some books, so I'm an author now, won some awards, and just really plugging in during this season of my, this year I haven't really been active, but last year I was very active. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the groove of things as far as mentorship and just putting some time aside to really connect with entry-level designers and mid-level and just really, continue to be a part of the conversation. I love challenging methodologies and ideas and kind of the way we do things as UX designers, because there are lots of content out there, but when it comes to the day-to-day actual getting your hands dirty, there are so many things that we need to refine and really just keep working on, as a discipline and as a team. So, but yeah, I love what I do and, just excited to be here. Hopefully I can share a couple things that you would find helpful and useful along with these other incredible panelists and speakers here. So excited to be here. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you, William. It seems like we have a panel of incredibly passionate and loving of the UX industry designers, which is incredible. And the subject of storytelling in your portfolio is probably equally as important as anything else on your portfolio. And with that, I would like to go in the same order, I guess, keeping it more organized, and start with Lily to tell us what exactly we all should know about storytelling in our portfolios.
Do it. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you see it? Nice.
Thumbs up.
Okay. I've already introduced myself, so that's obvious. Let's go straight in. So I think that my number one tip is to understand who your audience is. I'm sure you've all built personas for your projects, know what that process is like, and I don't think that building your portfolio should be any different. Basically, I want to introduce to you guys the two most important people who will visit your portfolios, which are either recruiters or hiring managers. Of these two types, the most frequent visitor is a recruiter. They're responsible for getting as many potentially good candidates as possible into the pipeline. So they basically dedicate parts of their day sourcing for talent, meaning they will go through as many people as possible and reach out to the ones who passed their initial screening. Because of that sheer volume of work and the fact that they may not have a design background, they'll likely go for breadth in your case study. That means that they'll skim through really quickly through 3 to 4 different case studies. They'll want to maximize the chance that you're a hireable candidate by covering all their bases. So they'll look for, do you have experience in user research somewhere? Do you have mostly web or mobile or both experience? Do you have, generally how to iterate on your designs? Basically, they'll want to explicitly tick off a list of boxes according to the job description that the hiring manager gave them. On the other hand, the hiring manager, who is the person that you're going to report to if you get hired, works pretty differently. They might source as well. Certainly if they work at a company that's like between 1 to 50 people, certainly there's not going to be a dedicated sourcer. So they may be the person who's at the forefront of that, but more likely they'll be looking at your portfolio later on down the stream to double check if there's a fit for their team. Likely the recruiter's already looked at it, and so they're just doing a final check. And then also once you've gone through the interview, they also want to maybe take a second look at your portfolio to make that final decision on if you should get an offer. There may be other interviewers involved in your interview loop as well, and they'll also take a look at your portfolio, but they'll look for very similar things to your hiring manager. So I have these two types of people. Because the hiring manager is the one that's filling the role, they have a pretty deep understanding of what they're looking for, and will also look at your case studies in depth. They're going to look into maybe 1 to 2 case studies at a deeper level to get a thorough idea of your strengths and your weaknesses, and basically map those to the nuances of what they're personally looking for, because they're the one who wrote the job description. So they're likely going to be implicitly looking for signals that you're a good fit. So the reason why I wanted to share these two types, because I think it's important for you guys to know who you're building your portfolio for, and also be able to optimize for both of these cases, both someone who is skimming super quickly through a bunch of stuff and someone who's looking deeply at your rationale and your decisions. So how do we do that? We want to deliver the most amount of value in the shortest amount of time. So regardless of who's actually looking at your portfolio, no one's going to spend more than 10 minutes on it. I think that's just a harsh truth that you have to start understanding now. Everybody is going to be skimming straight through your portfolio, even the hiring manager, and they're spending 10 minutes per person, not per case study. So what that means is you need to start putting your strongest and most relevant case study first. For example, your front-end developer who recently pivoted into design, don't put a bunch of coding projects up top unless they actually have something to do with design. Or if you're a web designer and you're looking to do more mobile design, put your mobile projects first, they're more relevant. For each of your case studies as well, you want to outline the key details at the top, like the makeup of your team, how long the project was, the general timeline, the platform the solution was built on, so on and so forth. And then also, before you get into any of the actual nitty-gritty details of your project, please include like a sneak peek of your final design at the top, both to one, hook them in, make them interested in learning about the beautiful piece of work that you're delivering. And then 2, also explain the projects in way more words than way more ways than words will do. Pictures speak 1,000 words, and I can certainly tell you that at a glance of just your final design, I can tell whether this project is consumer facing, how complex it might be, and just the caliber of your design skills as well. So it gives me a lot of signal right away. Then for your recruiters especially, you want to make your information hierarchy as skimmable as possible. If you read nothing but the headers for all of your paragraphs, do you still understand the essence of the project? If you don't, then you need to start making those headers provide more value. So for example, instead of the header that just says the word problem, maybe it should just say the problem statement itself. On top of that, you want to keep each of your sections pretty brief. Try to keep them like 1 to 2 paragraphs per section. Even a hiring manager who's looking at your case studies in depth doesn't want to spend that much time reading through like 5 paragraphs at a time. And then next, don't dwell too long on process. This is a huge hiccup that a lot of junior designers make, and they basically focus too long about how they recruited participants for their user interview, how they ran stakeholder meetings, showing sketches on whiteboard, and all of that just doesn't provide signal. All of those are obviously important part of the process, but they're considered to be table stakes for you to be called a designer. They're not proof that you're an exceptional one. And then for all the mockups and the flows that you show, do make it painfully obvious how it's solving the problem. Don't just do a full product walkthrough. There's been a lot of times when if a junior designer is showing like a note-taking app that they made, they'll also show stuff like the login screen and the settings menu, and all of that is just like irrelevant. You also want to prioritize your higher fidelity mocks over your lower fidelity. It's certainly nice to show a quick wireframe to indicate the early direction that you took your design in, but don't include things like napkin sketches or Post-its. They're just not legible, and they usually also don't provide a lot of signal into how, you know, all these smart decisions went into your final product. And then last but not least, also don't include like a super zoomed out overview wireframe shot, like squeezing like a bird's eye view of like 20 wireframes. Again, not super legible. All the important details are lost anyways. So overall, just be really intentional about what you show and why it actually matters, and how it actually shows that you're a great designer, not just that you are a designer. So that's my brain dump of as many tips as I could come up with. Happy to answer questions later.
Thank you, Lily. I have one question before we move on. How many would you recommend projects or use cases a designer should have on their portfolio?
I would say 3 to 4, just because I think 3 to 4 is hitting the ceiling of how many a recruiter is going to look at. Obviously, it depends on your background. If you pivot it from something that is just going to be additional added value to a portfolio, there's going to be exceptions. You know, if you came from a coding background, you might have some coding projects, and so you ultimately just have more projects. But 3 to 4 exceptional projects are certainly the ideal.
Awesome. Thank you. And keeping the order in line, Frankie. Why don't you share with us?
Am I sharing, or
Yes.
Lily, are you sharing?
I am sharing. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
So Lily going to be sharing and Frankie going to be talking.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes. Let me know when you want to go to the next slide as well, Frankie.
Will do. I'll try and make it obvious. If not, I'll tell you. Thank you, though. So hi, everyone. I'm Frankie. Nice to see you all again. Like I said, I've kind of veered into the content creation field within UX as well. So very active on both Instagram and LinkedIn. So by all means, feel free to follow me, as well as what I'm about to talk about is on both of those. So if you ever want to go back to it, feel free to take a look there. Next slide. Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about this methodology that I've coined as the UX portfolio sandwich model. So those of you on the East Coast or anywhere near where it's dinner time, I apologize. Hope I don't make you too hungry here. But basically, this is a method that I've come up with that I use on my own portfolio, and I've told a lot of my mentees and have heard great feedback on. And it's really helpful to bring for 2 reasons. One, it brings in the story piece to your portfolio case studies. And the other piece being that it really helps you narrow down what deliverables to go onto your case study, because as Lily said, you know, you don't want to throw everything on there. So you don't want to become what's called a checklist designer, where you're just kind of checking things off and throwing things on there. So this will really help you kind of break it all down. Next slide. Thank you. So with a sandwich, as I hope all of you know, there's 2 slices of bread and some filling in the middle. So for what we're going to do here is we'll talk about the first slice of bread. And so this slice of bread, and keep in mind, this whole thing is for the one single step of your process. So it's going to be, for example, your persona, let's say. We'll keep with this example for the whole presentation. So this top slice of bread, this is going to be the context or the introduction. So it's going to be a sentence or two that's going to introduce that deliverable that you're talking about or that step you're talking about. So for example, I want you to ask yourself this question of, what was the point of completing this deliverable? What is this deliverable? So if we're talking about the persona, it'll be, you did some user interviews and you wanted to compile a characterized version of who all your users were so that, when you got to doing this project, you always thought about your users. Something like that, you'll write into a sentence or two or some bullets and put that on your case study is the first thing you'll see for this step so that you're introducing it nicely so that your reader right off the bat understands what's going on. From there, you get your filling. You're going to get your veggies, your meat, whatever you want in your sandwich. And this piece is the deliverable in itself. So this is the section that I would say probably 90 to 100% of you already have done. And this step here can be twofold. It can either be the physical deliverable that you've already created on your project and you're just screenshotting or copying and pasting over, which is totally valid. Or it can also be a more high level version, the key takeaways if you want to go down that route, or a more updated version if you've learned stuff along the way. Either or doesn't matter, but it will be your physical image of that deliverable here. Next slide, thank you. So then you get to the bottom slice of bread. And this is going to be the kicker, the most important part. And it's the piece that I want to say about probably 80% of you forget, including myself when I first started out about a year plus ago. So basically this bottom slice is going to be the key takeaways or your summary. Again, it's going to be a paragraph or a couple bullets, couple sentences, whatever you want. So it's going to be that bottom section underneath your intro, then your deliverable, and then this section. And so the reason why this piece is super important is because this is where here you will bring in that story piece, and also where it will help you kind of decide whether or not it's a really make or break deliverable that you need to put in your case study. Probably asking, how does a slice of bread do that? Basically, what I want you to do is ask yourself the question of, why is this deliverable important to that project? Or, what were the main key takeaways from this, this section or this step of your process? How did it lead to the final process, the final story, the final image or deliverables or project, whatever you want to call it? And so by asking yourself this question of, how important is it? You're answering it, or by answering that question, you're getting yourself to realize, was this really important to that story? Or was it more important to that more kind of process that you needed to get to the final solution? So for example, I like to use the example of screener surveys. So I think Lily was also talking about this as well, where, screener surveys are super important when you're figuring out your project. When you're getting to that actual process, you need to know who your users are in order to get the right solution. However, when you get to a portfolio, it's not really the meat and bones of your case study. It's not going to get you to that final solution in terms of that story. And so that's a great example of where this solution, or by asking yourself how important is it, can really help you figure out, should I become that checklist or more of that story? Because by this way, you're asking yourself, do you need all of these pieces? And so it will shorten the length of it. And so by, adding this last sentence or two here, what you're doing is helping with the whole story of the case study, because you're bringing in those final, summaries, or you're really sandwiching, hence the name of it, you're sandwiching this whole section together to really bring all the pieces together. So in summary, it's really important to tell a story rather than a checklist through your deliverables, and doing this through what I like to call the sandwich method. So by sandwiching your deliverables, you're creating a more natural, seamless flow between the transitions of step 1 to step 2, because the last slice of bread will usually lead into that first slice of bread of the next step. So for the persona, talking about how, it was important to always remember who our users were. And we found out that our users, let's say, were millennials, and because they're millennials, they mostly will only use their iPhones or their mobile phones. And so because of that, we knew then to design for mobile. So then the next intro for a slice of bread of the next step would be, now that we need to design for mobile, this, this, and this. So it really brings in that whole story.
Thank you, Frankie.
So thank you.
And thank you for the sandwich. I'm pretty hungry. No dinner yet.
Me too.
I have a question for you before we move on to the next person. So you presented an interesting approach to how to kind of frame your portfolio as a sandwich. Now, do you think that every single or every case study that a designer might have on their portfolio, should they follow the exact same format and have every case study look at the same kind of a flow, if you will?
Yes and no, which I know is not a good answer. Yes, in the sense that I think overall you should have kind of a basic-ish template that you're going to think to use for all of your case studies. The reason I say yes, and I say this, is because it shows that you're thinking of that overall user experience at the end of the day, because that means that once your user or your reader, your hiring manager, whoever it is, has seen one case study, they'll not have to reteach themselves how to see the next one, so that it's automatic in terms of that format. But the reason I say no is because you also don't want it to become too checklist-like. Like if you don't have like a set deliverable, let's say, for one case study, but you do for the other, that is totally fine to make them separate and skip that step. So my answer is yes and no, in the sense that they should look pretty similar, but don't feel like it has to be completely identical, that it, interrupts that flow.
Thank you. Very useful.
Everyone.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next, and this is going to be Nitesh.
Hey guys. So yeah, I'm Nitesh, and so the reason I just put up this slide in this way is because like it could be anyone in the center, and there could be like a lot of other people looking at you and like your portfolio in general, which could be like hiring managers or anyone else in general. So and also like I'm a fan of Pablo and his illustrations, so I just wanted to use them. So it's like it could be anyone who is like looking for you and your portfolio, and it's in general, like storytelling is something like very important, not just for the portfolio, but also in general in your process of designing products, and also like just the way you express different things. So it's kind of a key element, I would say, that can like help you go way ahead in your journey with respect to hiring, and also like while building products, just from UX perspective. Next slide, please, Lily. So in general, I think like just as a human behavior, I think like we're all storytellers in general, and anything that's like put together in form of a story kind of registers a lot more stronger in someone's head, and it's kind of like it's just a way of putting up things together in an interesting manner, where you can just have like a start to your story, and there's a lot of drama that happens in between, and then there's a happy ending or a sad ending, and hopefully a happy ending with respect to portfolios and the case studies. So it's quite important in the way it kind of depicts your work, and also creates an interest for someone who's looking at your portfolio. And even like it's not just about portfolio, like even when you're designing products in general, like your user stories or like user journeys, everything like relates to how you can like explain things in form of like story. So I think it's really important in the way you frame things together. So like I've been in general like talking to so many designers in general through different platforms, and there's a very common structure to portfolios. But the most important part that you probably need to portray in the portfolio is that, say you have like a couple of projects or three to four projects, what is the insight that you're actually learning from each of these projects and how it is helping you as a designer is something that it's like an opportunity for everyone to kind of portray what you can show. And the reason for that is it's very tough for someone who's looking at the portfolio who haven't met you as a person or as a designer to know who you are and like to understand how you think. So you might be like, you know, putting up your designs in a specific way, but it might be interpreted in a different perspective by someone who's reading at it because they don't know exactly who you are. So it's kind of a very, like I would say, great opportunity for us to kind of put things together in a way that could be like easily understandable for people. And I think it's a very, I mean, we should look at it as an opportunity rather than like, you know, it's one of the steps in the hiring process and I just have to get through it to go to the next steps. So if you start looking at it as an opportunity, it's more of like you're virtually interacting with hiring managers or people who are looking at your portfolios by like making your case studies interesting. And with that, I think the common thing that's also like previously mentioned and is very like common among most of the portfolios is the way things are portrayed. Lily, can you go to the next slide? So it's that there's lots of confusion on how you know, portfolios have to be put, and most of the times we tend to look at other people's portfolios and put things together and try to see like if something's working out for our examples and case studies. That's the common like behavior on building portfolios, and with that what happens is people do end up like putting lots of designs and lots of like high fidelity mockups as well, but it doesn't like help someone who's looking at the portfolio understand why exactly things are in what way and like what is the reason behind the design decision, because that's the only way someone can like judge what type of like designer you are and like even have a connection when they're trying to look at the designs. And it's very important to kind of provide information on why a specific button is in a specific place, or like that sort of information is very crucial to the case studies or portfolios, rather than like having the entire process in place, because it kind of gives a clear distinction between like the way you are designing versus way someone else is designing, because there'll be like multiple people who are kind of being interviewing like for same position, and as a recruiter or a hiring manager, someone would have like a clear understanding of how you design compared to other people that they are interviewing with. So it kind of gives a good advantage to everyone. And I just thought I'll give an example just from like one of my personal project in the next one, which actually is what I'm talking about. So most of like the portfolios that we see have like lots of screens that kind of show the entire process and all the screens and all the steps that kind of go through for the entire like workflow. But I wouldn't understand like what exactly you as a designer bring to the table looking at the top images or the views, seeing like what exactly did you contribute to, and like why are things in this specific manner, and like what is the thought behind each of these actions. So without knowing that, it's just gonna be like any other portfolio out there. So this is like I said, a very good opportunity for you to kind of explain what each of things are, and you know, why things are specified in a specific way. And this is where you can add small stories as well. Like for example, if I just leave everything in terms of like technical terms, or just as, you know, something that's a sequential order, it kind of like doesn't provide like good meaning or story. But if you just add something that says, as a developer you can explore different options in the application, and this kind of like statements could be on every single design or every single page, where it kind of happens like a flow. and kind of gives a context to the users or even like people who are looking at it, saying, okay, this is where the user is and this is what he wants to do, kind of simplifies your process. Like and even while like interviewing, you can have like control over the interview rather than leaving everything open-ended. It kind of gives like a good direction in which you want others to look at your portfolios. And this could go like wrong even if you like overdo it. Like most of the times, like people do take feedback and they do like too much of storytelling, which is like it just makes their portfolio like too long, which is again like a problem where people looking at it will not have like, at least I would say in reality, at max like 5 minutes, or like but it takes exactly like more than 10 minutes for someone to go through and read the entire story, entire process, which doesn't help your portfolio to kind of help others understand it. So it's kind of like you just need to find a middle ground between like not having a story versus having like too much of story, which is like, for example, as a persona, you just want to do something and so that it serves this purpose. So if you just keep like answering all the questions in this format, it kind of gives you like a good storytelling approach, and it could be applied to like all stages of the product in general from like UX standpoint. And yeah, so thanks for this opportunity again. And also like I'm like approachable on like LinkedIn, on Twitter, or you can also pick some time on ADPList, and I'm happy to talk. And it's great sharing this stage with other amazing designers. So thank you.
Thank you, Nitesh. It was really informative. And I would like to follow on the last point that you made regarding the length of the portfolio. What if a designer's portfolio or the specific case study is very, very long, and the person wants to tell the full story because they were involved in a lot of details of the project, and the project was multi-year, not just portion of the application, but the entire product? What would you say this person should do?
Yeah, I mean, like usually with enterprise applications and enterprise UX, especially, like I've seen, there's no way you can concise like the project in to be like very short, and it does like expand to a very longer version. So one thing that could definitely be done is you could provide like 2 versions of the same case study within your portfolio, which is like have a concise, like a shortened version of like highlights of what you actually did and brought to the table. And you could always add like a read more or like an extended case study option for someone who's actually really interested to read through the entire case study. Because in reality, like there's a high possibility for someone to not read the longer one and like might miss out on like good opportunities. So you could always have like a couple of options where there's an option for someone to actually read it as a full case study, or they could always just see the shortened version, which is like the default one on portfolios.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. And I was just informed that William, who's coming up next, actually has something to share. Yes, William has an option to share things. Sierra? Oh, he does. Great. Awesome.
Oh, all right. Yeah, thanks, Jan. So yeah, I just put down my thoughts here and on old slide as far as portfolios and storytelling goes. So I'm gonna dive in. I want to do something different. Just kind of take us a little bit back to the very beginning. My fellow designers have spoken in detail about the how and the tricks and the tips, but I want to take us back into the thought, why we do these things. Why does it even matter? Just to kind of really bring it all into a nice conclusion. So this brief presentation is in 2 parts, right? Mental disciplines. I want to talk about mental disciplines, and then the results we're looking to achieve, or the results that portfolios really do bring. So why does it matter? Why are we even doing this talk? Why does storytelling and portfolios matter? Number one, because your portfolio is your digital billboard, right? And I think it's really easy to explain that because everyone is familiar with billboards. You know, you drive by, you see it, and it could be a picture or an ad for anything. Without your portfolio, it's really difficult to identify who you are, your personality, your works, and then even for you to sell yourself to a recruiter or to, you know, someone that's looking to check your work out. So that's the most important part. It is your digital billboard, and this is your opportunity to present yourself through your eyes. So that's you telling the world, hey, this is who I am. Telling the professional world, this is who you are. And I think it's important because a lot of times we can get carried away with, you know, with the individual projects and working that we forget to tell our story. Who are you, right? Because actually being a UX designer, the hiring managers are also looking at your personality. They're looking at the soft skills. They're looking at your collaborative skills, your presentation skills, and all of that. So you could have incredible UX skills or UI skills, but you may not be a fit for a role. That's the hard truth. So the digital billboardness of your portfolio is very important. Once you understand that, like, hey, look, this is the greatest way I can really tell my story, right? Then I think it puts you in a good mindset to really kind of dig in and get to work. The second part, well, the first mental discipline is to identify your why. I know this statement goes around a lot for like everything in this world, like you got to know your why, but really, you really need to identify your why. What's your motivator in this field, right? Are you here to like really explore your creative side? Are you here to take it to the next level, or, you know, to just really build a career for yourself or be an influencer, speaker? I mean, there's so many of us here that have been through so many, you know, worked for several different companies, small to large, but why do you do what you do, right? Why do you want to be in this field? Once you're able to identify that, it gives you a good place. And I'm going to skip a few slides to take you to the reason why it matters. It gives you a place, a concrete place to present your portfolio personality. Because when a hiring manager looks at your portfolio, they want to see the human behind that as well. So, you know, that's the thing. Like a lot of times we forget to add, like, who are you? Tell me, John, who are you? You're not like Joe Blogs, right? So once you identify your why, it gives you content. It gives you a concrete ground to present your personality through your portfolio, right? You're able to sell yourself. You're able to say, okay, for me personally, I love UX because I love creating. I love human computer interaction and building experiences that live digitally. That just gets me excited. So it's easy for me to present that in my portfolio, even through the blurbs or the bio or the GIFs or photos that I use strategically to tell that story. So when a hiring manager gets on there and they look at it, they're like, oh, you know, he's got a little humor, or he's this, or he's that. You want the hiring manager to be able to retrieve, and whoever's looking at your portfolio to be able to get the message you're sending. So that's why it's important to identify your why. Now, we're going to go back here to identifying the destination. So where do you want to go in your career? Where are you going? Are you looking to just have a full-time job and work at a large company? Or you're looking to start your own agency? Or you're looking to just be an individual contributor on a small team? Or you want to lead a team? I mean, there's so many variants, right? But once you just step back and just think a little bit, you know, check out all the senior UX designer profiles you can find on LinkedIn and authors, et cetera, and see what they're up to and figure out, where do you want to fit? How do you see yourself? Once you're able to do that, it helps you identify the types of works you want to show in your portfolio, and then also your pursuit in your career. What that means for me is, if you know, it's like every journey, right? If you know where you're going, it's easy for you to get there. So once you identify, I want to work for PayPal, well, it's a really large company. How do I get there? it's easier for you to focus on, okay, what kind of portfolios do I want to show on my, well, no, what kind of projects do I want to show on my portfolio so that I can attract a PayPal hiring manager, right? For instance, or I can even leave a mark or become memorable or even fit, right? For to be considered to get that callback when they look at my portfolio. So identifying where you're going will help you to figure out, what projects you're going to show. And then the pursuit part is really what jobs you're going to be applying for, what opportunities you're going to take, because you will, there are free opportunities there, unpaid internships and paid, and there are charities and volunteer work. So there's a lot, there are a lot of opportunities that you can be a part of or you can take advantage of, but identifying where you're going will dictate what opportunity you join or you take advantage of as you're walking this journey. And then that would help you on figuring out which of those projects, even if it's schoolwork, right? Which of those projects you're gonna list and display on your portfolio to attract the right company or hiring manager, etc. It's kind of like, I just thought of this right now. It's kind of like, I don't know, bees. Yeah, I think bees, like they're picky on what flowers or type of nectar. It kind of, depends. So doing this just kind of gave me an idea of like, you can't just like, they don't just go to any tree to get any, I don't know, there's something there, but I got to refine that thought. But you have to be really, you have to know where you're going, because it's easy to get there and then also working backwards from that. Now let's go back here to, let's see, what's the goal? So the goal of storytelling in your portfolio. Actually, did I? Hang on. Okay, so I think I skipped the slide. We identified our why, we identified where, and then we talked about why it's important to identify these two aspects. Now, the third thing you should identify is your who, and that's what a lot of the speakers I've talked about already. That could be the hiring manager. It could be just your your boss or the boss that you're looking to work for, a manager, design agency, whatever it is. You need to, once you identify these, why and where, identify who's going to be looking at your portfolio, what response you're looking to receive. This part is very important. Identifying the response you're looking to receive, because that can really catapult you into getting super creative on how you present your work, right? Because if you're looking to receive, are you looking to get phone calls? Are you looking to get a quick message, an email, contact, LinkedIn? Once you identify who's going to be looking at it and what response you're looking to get, it's easy to also strategically do that. I don't have this on my portfolio yet, but a cool idea that I thought of was if I ever have the need or time, I'll probably put like a live chat widget on my portfolio and connect it to my phone. So I'm not giving out my number, but anyone that gets on my portfolio will just have something pop up. Hey, it's Will. I'm actually available. Just shoot me a text. Like, so those are just weird ideas that come to you once you start thinking and brainstorming about how do what end result am I looking for, from my portfolio. Also identifying your who, you kind of dig into what do they typically look for, right? So kind of like Lily and Frankie and Nitish shared. If it's a hiring manager that's looking with a short attention span, they're going to be in and out, right? So you have to really figure out, okay, am I going to present a ton of information or just the highlights, the bird's eye view, 35,000 feet, what matters, right? But you need to identify who's looking at it. It could be someone that's really, research focused. They're going to be spending more time looking at your research, data and presentation. So there are all these variables that you should consider. What matters to them? Are they looking at the visuals? Are you applying or positioning yourself as a visual designer, or you're looking at just the experience, whether we want to kind of dig into the flow and the end-to-end aspect of it. So there are lots of questions you're going to be asking yourself through this process, but I think it's important to really put that in front of you so you can think about these things as you work through it. What is the goal of this? The end result is to leave a mark. You want to make sure that your portfolio, once you're done, once it's out there, is really resonating with the viewer. So make sure you're leaving a mark in the minds of recruiters or anyone that sees your portfolio, because they're going to be looking at hundreds, if not thousands of portfolios. And that's just the reality. But how do they identify, oh, wait, I saw Will's portfolio, or, oh yeah, that Will guy. Yeah. How are they going to mention your name to tie you back to your portfolio? That's the goal here, because you want to get that call back. You want to get that, that next step. The way you do that is by inviting others to give you feedback and observe their reactions and comment. Are they like excited? Are they, dazzled by some of the features and organization you have on your portfolio, or are they just blah? These are things you want to keep into consideration as you refine your portfolio. And that brings me to the last point here: rinse and repeat, right? So that's back to the results that we're looking for. And tying back to the billboard example that I gave, or I guess expression, if a billboard is built to withstand a storm, it will. So, you see a billboard in town. Actually, all these billboards, I've never seen one fall. But, if you have one that's not really steady, it's not built structurally, perfect or properly, it is going to fall, right? It is going to fall apart. And then if it does, it must be refined, rebuilt, restructured, blueprint redrawn, etc. So if your portfolio is not doing that job for you, and it's really not getting the results you're looking for, it means feel free to keep refining it and keep, just kind of applying all these techniques to really get you there. So that's all I got. And I hope this is helpful.
Thank you, William. So I was made aware that we are almost at time. However, I do have one question for William. So you're talking about understanding, really identifying what you want and so forth. Would you say that doing your own kind of a user research as a designer about your portfolio or your case studies is something important to do for even a starting out junior designer?
Yes, and that's a really good point. That's exactly what I was talking about in the last slide, of just really inviting others, to get in and say, hey, what do you think about this portfolio? Or, check out my portfolio and I will check out yours, and give you feedback amongst other designers, because it's important to gather that data and then use that to refine and kind of update the portfolio. Yeah, very important.
I see. Thank you. I have a question from, I guess, some guest participants, and I'll see who wants to pick it up. Somebody asked, I want to know, actually it's Carmen, I want to know what are the most creative or engaging examples of portfolios or storytelling in portfolios you've ever seen? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Go for it.
So there's this one that I saw. I was doing a portfolio review, and those are also cool. If you see any of those portfolio reviews, guys, feel free to submit your portfolios, because you get to kind of see your portfolio amongst like 20 other designers. But there was one, it's just like a GIF, but it was the GIF of the girl dancing across the hero slider on the page. And it was just like funny, but you remember that, and there was one that wasn't a GIF, but she was just laying on the middle of the road on the floor. Just, that was her slider hero image. And then with her name on top of it. And I just thought, wow, it's just out of this world, but you don't forget things like that. So it's all like, yeah.
Awesome. Anyone else?
That reminded me of one, and I don't know if it was necessarily a great portfolio, but it was definitely something that stood out. It was different, and I think it gave personality, which is also a big piece here. Is kind of similar to what Will was talking about. Was that I saw one once where it was basically a video or a GIF, whatever you want to call it, as like the header image, but it was a video of him just going through and doing like his UX process, like 5 times speed or whatever it is. And you're just watching him do his process, like not breaking down or anything. So it's, very high level, but it's interesting to kind of see that rather than, white background. Hi, my name is Frankie. I'm a UX UI designer. That goes into my whole other thing of the importance of personal branding, but I will keep that one short and sweet.
All right, awesome. Anyone else has an example?
Yeah, I had one which was like, I think it was more like programmed with some hard code behind the website development itself. So it's just that he's just looking at you as soon as you get to the portfolio, and if you think this is the mouse pointer, so as soon as like wherever you go in the screen, his head tilts towards that mouse, and that's like the intro of like the page. So there's no way you could forget that thing that's happening among like 100 of like portfolios. And even if you go to the projects, he just minimizes himself to the corner, and he keeps like wondering, and he keeps like getting scared, and there's all sorts of like emojis happening with his personality itself. It was pretty interesting.
Interesting idea. There's another question from Joshua. What's the best way to show a workflow without filling the page with small models?
I can answer this one. I think that it's important to show a workflow in great detail if it ties directly to the problem that you're trying to solve. And so if you're going to be building this enormous app and it's like a whole redesign, there's obviously going to be hundreds of screens that you could show. But I think that if you can choose one particular flow that really gets to the heart of the problem and is also showing some ingenious like iterations and really clever interaction pieces that can really make you shine, just go through the main screens of that one flow instead of showing like a million other different flows and doing like a whole like zoomed out overview of all like the different wireframes and whatnot. So I would just say like show maybe like the first wireframe of some key steps throughout that flow, and then show maybe the final prototype and all the different ways that it was better than that initial wireframe. Maybe it can be like an interactive prototype, it could be like a GIF or a video, however you want. It could be just static, but that's probably what I've seen, and I think that totally does the job.
Awesome, thank you. It seems like there's no more questions, but I will ask one more to see what you guys thinking about this kind of approach. So what happens if there is a young designer that just graduated and they have a very small part of the project they worked on, and this is the only thing they can really put on the portfolio? How would they communicate this kind of a story of what they did and how they did it?
Say that one more time, that last part.
Okay, so let's assume that I'm a young designer. I just graduated, and the only thing I have to show for is a small part of a mobile application that I worked on, and that's the only thing I have.
That's my response. I think we have to be honest, and I want all of the speakers to also chime in here. But personally, I just feel like that's not going to be enough, especially with the current state of UX and the career, and how many people are coming in every minute. I think it's important to do some more work, whether it's even conceptual or startups or charities volunteer, but it's going to be important to do that in order to show some more. So I don't know, but what do you guys think?
I want to jump in here and push back on you. Sorry, I cut someone off.
No, sorry. I was just saying, like, I do agree that it's like with so many people coming in the current times, I think you probably need more. But there's also another side to it, which is like from a junior designer or someone who is just starting out, I think the most important ability that's looked at is like their willingness to learn and like implement. So you can, even though you just are like small part or like small page of a big project, you could still like point out hundreds of things that you've been learning through the journey and just like put them like wherever that you can in the portfolio, saying from this, I was like shadowing this part, but I actually learned something very valuable in my like working session with another designer, or some sort of way where you're actually learning things and just trying to implement those. So it's like you're learning and just waiting for that right opportunity to kind of express what you're learning. So that's also like one good way to put things out.
Frankie wanted to say something.
Yeah, I did. So I wanted to push back a little bit here, and maybe I misunderstood the question. But as a junior mid-level designer, I'm kind of in between at the moment myself. The reason I wanted to push back is because I had honestly, my first freelance project was working for a dating app right after my boot camp, and I only focused on the onboarding process. I did their user research to figure out kind of why there was this, downfall, why users were not really interacting with the product, and realized that it was mostly because of that onboarding, because no one understood how it was different, because everyone, aimlessly swiped through it. And so the reason I'm pushing back on it is because, it was a project, and I still have it on my portfolio to date, that I was able to only do that small piece of that overall flow of that entire app, but it was a big, relatively big, I guess, process. And I was able to make a whole case study just about that onboarding flow. It's all about, I think, how you word it and all about how you think about that brief. So it's, becomes, what is the problem that you're solving? How is that going to make or break that kind of end of the day kind of story that I was talking about, or final product I was talking about earlier. So I think there are ways to do it. I think it just becomes, how much research, how much UI design are you doing for that one piece? And I think it is doable, but it depends on the specific project, I guess. But that was what I wanted to say, is that it is doable.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, it seems like we are at time. Lily, unfortunately, already left us because she had to go for a work meeting. I want to thank all the panelists and to the AIGA Orlando for inviting us and then having this incredible conversation. And I'm going to pass it on to Sierra.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you really enjoyed the session, please check out ADPList.